Waves by C. Don McCallum. Chapter 9. The sea. She'd never seen it before. No one she knew had, but now here it was before her, vast and impossible to understand. Mia wished she could see where it ended. She wished she could see how far it stretched its great waves, rolling its froth. She stood and walked to the waves, scrolling up the beach. The salt air filled her mouth and stung her nostrils. The river didn't taste like this, neither did the fountain. The sea had a smell all its own, and Mia breathed it in. She touched her hands to the water, tickling her calves, and dug her toes into the sand. Tiny fish swished and swam near her feet in unison. She grabbed at them, but they sped up before her fingers even got close. Mia touched her fingers to her lips. The moisture felt good, but she couldn't drink this. There has to be something I can drink, she thought, and looked back up the shore. What was that on top of the hill? The stone walls of buildings peeked over the ridge, reflecting the morning sun. Mia's heart stopped. There had to be people up there. Food and water. She lifted her feet and pushed through the waves back up the shore. Sand gathered between her toes, a feeling she'd never experienced before, but that didn't matter now. She had to get to the buildings at the top of the hill. Her eyes scanned the rugged ridge, and she saw a staircase. An hour ago, she didn't know if she could have walked another step, but now she knew she could race up the steep stairs before her. She had to. She had no choice. There had to have been at least 40 steps, but she didn't think about that. Her body moved because that's what it had to do. She felt weak. Her head hurt. But she kept on. She hadn't noticed how much her hips were hurting her, how sore the fall into the tunnel had made her, but the walls growing taller over the hill kept her going. Near the top, she heard a familiar sound, a trickling of water like she'd listened to all of her life, only this water sounded lower, deeper. Mia walked faster at the sound of water. It had to be a fountain. She put her hands on the steps and crawled up with her arms too. She would make it up. She would drink from the fountain. At the top of the stairs, she could see the ground. This was a square like the one she grew up in, the way it used to be. The multicolored stones of the walls she had seen from the shore were just like the ones at home, the ones that used to stand before the quakes came. What is this place? It didn't matter now. All that she cared about was getting to the water. The fountain sprawled through the square at least 3 times bigger than the square she had always known. She didn't see where her steps led her. She only saw the rush of water shooting into the sky and falling into the fountain below. Forgetting her pain, she moved on, her mouth hungry for the taste it was about to know. Mia's hands plunged into the pristine fountain. She scooped it up and poured it into her mouth. Her throat was sore with dryness, but the water forced its way into her. Her mouth cringed and she wanted to cry. The water was cool, perfect, and all around the inside of the fountain the water danced up against tile, each with a picture painted on it, each telling stories she'd never heard. She scooped again, and the hunger in her stomach reawakened. She had to find food. The sunrise so new, no people were stirring yet in the square. Curtains waved in the breeze of the open windows, but no one passed by inside the buildings. Why did they look so much like her old village? As if in answer to her question, a whisper carried itself over the square and into Mia's heart. She looked behind her. The greatest tree she had ever seen watched her tiny body in the square, just like the one at home, only bigger, older. How ancient it must be. She ran to the trunk and searched for forgotten fruit to eat. There were none, but the ripples of the bark called her to it. She had to touch the trunk, running her hand across the coarse surface. She knew this tree. This tree was home. This tree called her by name, and she listened to the soothing voice of its leaves. She was home. But where were all the people? Maybe they weren't in their homes, getting ready for the new day as she'd thought. Maybe they had deserted the village in search of newer lands. Maybe that's where her people came from. It had to be. But the village was so clean. The curtains so new. The water so perfect in the fountain. There were people here. There was one now. In a path off of the square, Mia saw the graceful figure of a girl walking with a jar. Those hands, Those bird-like wrists, the dark hair. Mia fell to her knees. All of the hunger, the exhaustion, the sadness of last season knocked her down in that instant. Perla was here. Wherever here was, her sister was here, alive. Mia pushed herself on her hands and knees. The rough gray stones grated at her knees, but she didn't care. Perla, she cried. Her voice, sore with thirst and disuse, didn't carry. Perla, she called again, and her sister stopped. Mia, her sister cried. That sweet voice. Mia thought she'd never hear it again, yet here it was. There she was, her sister, her beautiful sister. Perla bent and dropped the jar to the ground. Ever quicker steps carried to her sister's side. Mia had never known such happiness as when her sister's arms wrapped around her trembling body. She was home. She didn't know how she got here, but she was home. You're soaking, Perla said, wiping the sand from her sister's body. You would be one to swim in the ocean. There were so many things Mia wanted to say, but she couldn't speak. She couldn't stop shaking. Her sister's voice was too beautiful. Too many questions pulsed through her mind. Tears gushed from her eyes, and Perla's arms flung around her again tighter. I knew you'd make it, Perla said. Did you find my note? Mia nodded. Perla's kisses graced her face. Come on. I know you're hungry. I was almost starving when I first got here. I passed out on the stairs. Did you have some water? Mia nodded as Perla pulled her shaking body up to standing. She couldn't feel anything but the weight of her body being guided by her sister's arms. Nothing else mattered. Do you have any idea how long you were in the tunnels? Mia shook her head, her brow furrowed with a question. Where did the tunnels come from? She whispered. They're so ancient that no one remembers who built them or why, Perla explained as she helped her sister across the square. We do know that the early villagers went to start new villages. The people of our village forgot about the tunnels. They were reopened when the quakes came, but we don't know how or why so many of us were drawn to them in the night. So they're all here? Mia's heart sped up with her steps. Not everyone, Perla said sadly. They don't always make it. That's why Father and others are searching the tunnels for wanderers like you. Father? Mia pushed out of her throat. Perla smiled. He'll be home before dark. Mia's heart was full of new love. The tears came again. She really was home, more than she could ever have hoped for. I knew you'd make it, Perla said, squeezing her sister to her. I can't believe you made it up the stairs. You were always stronger than I was. Mia looked at her sister. The pain of the last 2 seasons of the tree seemed unreal now, seeing her sister's smiling eyes and the village walls around them. The deep trickling water, the whispering tree. The sounds of life could be heard on the streets. This village stretched out farther than their old home. Mia couldn't see the end of it. How many more secrets were hiding behind these walls? What else was here that had been stolen from their old village? And she knew she had to tell her. Perla, Mia stopped. Jerlaine was swallowed. He entered the tunnels the night before me. Sadness washed over her sister's face, and Mia knew her love for him had never been as strong as what Perla felt. They were for each other, just like everyone said. Perla took a deep breath, and Mia's eyes were drawn to a sight she'd never known. Between the buildings, she caught a glimpse of the sea. The sun hovered on the horizon. Perla, Mia said. The tears slowed and her curiosity unleashed. There was one question Mia had to have answered. She was more breathless now than when she was climbing the stairs. Is this the city of waves? Her sister smiled and said, It's not just the city of waves. That's the name of our world. Waves, Mia whispered, feeling all the pain drop away from her body. Come on, Perla said, pulling at her sister. Let's get you something to eat. Mia's stomach called for the bread she smelled baking not far away, but not close enough. Gavin, Perla called to a young man turning the corner. He ran to them. He seemed familiar. I want you to meet someone. Perla's eyes shined. Her arms drew her sister in tighter. This is my sister. This is Mia. Let me help you, Perla. Gavin's arms reached around to hold her up from the other side. Mia, so glad to finally meet you, he said with smiling eyes, the color of the sky. Welcome home. Mia watched the white curtain flap in the window and pulled the blankets she shared with her sister up around her chin. Her nose was a little cool, but the air was clean and welcoming. Birds chirped outside as if welcoming her to the first day in her new home. This was better than she ever imagined. She turned on her side and picked up a lock of Perla's long dark hair. She pulled it through her fingers and looked into her sister's eyes. I thought I was swallowed by the tunnel because I was jealous of you, Perla said, her eyes heavy with sadness. Mia furrowed her brow. What? Why would you be jealous of me? I was always jealous of how all the villagers watched you when you ran from place to place, Perla said. No one could wait to see what you'd do next with your busy hands. Mia couldn't believe what she was hearing. Perla, her perfect sister, was jealous of her. When you were swallowed, I thought it was because I stole the storybook, Mia confessed, and because I was jealous of you. Of me? But why? Because everyone always listens to you. They always talk about how graceful Perla is. Mia stopped. She didn't know if she should tell the rest, but she knew how secrets could hurt. She remembered the promise she'd made. She wasn't a liar anymore. She had to tell the truth. I was jealous of you because everyone said Jerlaine was for you. Perla was quiet. A new weight appeared in her eyes. Jerlaine. The birds sang and the girls heard movement in the hallway. Their father was getting up to start searching the tunnels again. He said Mia could go with him when she was stronger. He knew she liked to have work to do. He'll be here soon, Mia said. She could almost see Jerlaine walking in the darkness to the field. Any day now. Mother, too. They'll all be here soon. He won't give up until he finds a way to you. And Mia knew this was true. Still Perla did not speak. She breathed in deeply, watching the curtains graze the windowsill waving to the new morning, Mia and Perla's first day in the village. The first day at home. Together. Mia thought of asking Perla what her note said, but another question rose to her lips. Would you teach me to read? Of course I will. Perla's eyes smiled as she watched her sister. Mia grabbed the corner of the blanket and threw it back. Come on, she said, sitting up. She reached for her sister's hands. Let's get up. Let's go to the fountain and see who's there. Let's find something to do. Mia pulled Perla up and bounced off the bed and sprung to the window. The most beautiful time of the year was the renewal. The trees in the orchard would bear blossoms soon, then delicious fruit. The ocean waited down by the shore, hiding its secret lives. There was a wilderness to explore on the outskirts of the great village. So much to do, and Mia wasn't going to miss any of it. She went to the window and pushed the curtains aside. She saw the birds that had been singing since the first rays of dawn. It was feeding time for the new babies, happy with hunger. Mia looked down the empty street. Never mind the pain in her body, she wanted to run. Thank you for listening to the last chapter of Waves by C. Don McCallum. If you're enjoying this story, please consider sharing it with someone you know. And please like the video and subscribe to this channel to help others discover these stories.